Yes. I didn't know that CalArt was offering also majors in dance. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to give it a few more minutes. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to probably wait a couple more minutes. Bailey, what do you say? Just for people to be
Yeah,
able to...
let's wait another couple minutes till let's see who comes in.
Sounds good. Oh, cool. So Juan is doing MFA in music, alumni, experimental film, dance, performance art, direction, meditation, performance art, and classical musician. Pretty cool. Nice background. Guys, as I was mentioning, for those who just tuned in, if you don't mind telling me what you study, what you're studying or what you studied, that would be helpful. I'll try to do my best to tailor my examples towards it if I can. Okay, Luke is doing music composition.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'll do the quick intro. So welcome everyone. This event is hosted by the Patty Disney Center for Life and Work. My name's Bailey, I'm the director of the center, and we have our wonderful life and work advisor, Natasha, here.
Hello.
We're so glad you joined us. We at the Institute create different workshops, courses, and resources for all students and alumni who go to CalArts to help you professionally develop and chart your path to success. So we are here if you ever want one-on-one advising. Natasha and I can put our emails in the chat, and we are so excited to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Building Your Professional Network from Scratch. This is Laura Bennegadi from Artbound Initiative. Welcome,
Hi, guys.
Laura.
Thank you so much, Bailey and Natasha, for hosting this workshop. And hope this will be helpful for all of you guys. I know that this is crazy times at the moment with COVID hitting the job market. So, you know, I'm going to try to give only pragmatic stuff and pragmatic examples and things that you can directly apply, hopefully. What I'll do is that I'll introduce really quickly who I am and what the program is, because I'm the CEO of Artbound Initiative, which is a global internship program in the creative fields. And then I'll jump right into the workshop. The workshop will be divided in two sections. The first one will be about how to create connections. And then the second one will be about how to cultivate connections, right? Because everybody can meet someone, but then how do you build up a really useful connection moving forward to get opportunities? I'll try to keep it as short as possible. We'll make a break in the middle if you guys have any questions, and then afterwards we'll break it completely to a Q&A. So let me share my screen right now with you guys, and let's get going. As I go, feel free to pop in questions in the chat, and then I'll break it. Once I break it, I'll read everything. All right, guys. So to tell you a little bit who I am and who's chatting with you, just so that you have an idea. So my name is Laura. As Bailey mentioned, I'm originally from Paris, France. That's the accent, the slight accent that you're hearing. I studied in Paris at the Sorbonne University, which is one of the top universities in France. And I did a master's in international strategic management, which are all very fancy words to basically say business. I didn't want to work in business particularly. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just thought business might be a good way for me to go about it, because then I could do pretty much everything that I wanted. And my idea was always to be like on the business side of the art world or the creative world or the cultural world. So I started working in advertising for a minute in a big agency called TBWA, which is also in LA and New York, and I think other offices in the US as well. Didn't really enjoy it, to be honest, and didn't want to live in Paris because my goal was actually to move to New York City. That was like, I guess I watched too much American films and TV when I grew up, and I just had this dream that I needed to make it in New York. So one day after I quit my job, and then I just, tried to find a job in New York, but was not able to. It was impossible. People were not answering to me. There was visa sponsorship issues. So I decided to pack my bag, take savings for 3 months, and then just, get on a plane with a one-way ticket and try to make it in America. When I got to New York, I started networking with people, saying I'm looking for jobs, etc., and then met a theater producer who was working on projects both off Broadway and on Broadway, and he was looking for an associate. So it was it was just the opportunity. I was there at the right moment. And so I became his associate producer and worked in the theater industry in New York for 7 years, mainly in producing. And I actually worked on, I see that some of you guys are music then, so maybe you might be familiar a bit with the theater industry, but I was one of the associate producers of The Band's Visit, which was a musical that went out, I think, 3 years ago, and we won all the Tony Awards, 11 Tony Awards, including Best Musical, so that was awesome. And then after a while, I got tired of the theater industry. The reason why is that my job was to actually really raise money for shows. It wasn't the glamorous thing that I thought it would be, like, oh, theater, I'm going to be casting and working with actors and stuff. It was actually raising the dollars. So I got a bit tired of that, and I decided that I wanted to do my own thing. And I decided to launch a program that I wish existed back then when I wanted to move from Paris to New York, that would basically help students and recent grads to find opportunities in, like, different cities around the world, most likely cities that are extremely competitive. So I've launched Artbound Initiative, which is a global career accelerators for creative, and we offer internships in New York City, in London, Berlin, Hong Kong, and then now we just launched in Melbourne and Sydney as well. Basically, what we do is that we offer internships in all the areas of the creative fields. We're very niche towards creative areas, which is why we work so closely with CalArts always. But basically, we have internships ranging from communication and advertising, anything relating to PR, to event, to creative writing. We have a lot of opportunities in design, ranging from graphic design to fashion design to interior and architecture. And then we also have lots of opportunities in entertainment. I see a lot of you guys are from the entertainment background. So stuff in TV, film, theater, video and sound editing. So things that are a little bit more technical, things in music as well, and in talent management. Not too much in dance, unfortunately. Something that I have to say. We do have a few cultural non-for-profits that do dance programming, but not too much in there. And then we also have a lot of opportunities in visual arts. So anything relating to fine arts, photography, but also working for galleries, public programming, and all of that. So basically, we have a few programs. We have our international program that is for abroad. Obviously, for you guys would be, we have a local program that can be accessible to you guys because you're already in the US, so you could do our New York program. But we also have international opportunities. Right now, COVID happening is a little bit complicated. But hopefully for summer 2021, things will be reopening by then. And so if you are interested in submitting an application for that, feel free to go on our website and you will see everything that you need to see in terms of application requirements. We also do one-on-one coaching as well. And, I'm not going to talk too much about the program because I really want us to focus on that workshop. If you guys have any questions about it, you can feel free to reach out to us. I will ask Kanya, who I believe is here as well, who's from our team, to pop in the chat our info so that you guys can see where we are. I added also a QR code in case you want to snap a photo on it, and that will take you to the website. And so basically that's in this capacity that I'm talking to you guys today. My job since the past 5 years, no, four and a half, is to actually place people, right? So I'm in recruitment in some way. So I'm talking to people in the creative industries, recruiters, hiring managers, day in and day out. Like that's all I do all day. We're talking as well with universities. So I think that at this point I've developed a level of expertise in terms of what I would say people should be doing to try to get jobs. And so that's what we're going to touch upon today. The webinar's objective is going to be, number one, learning how to build your professional network. And then number two, learning how to cultivate relationships. And that's actually very crucial. So before I get into it, I want to show you 2 slides of a survey that actually we sent out when COVID happened. When it first happened, we heard everybody losing their jobs. Like it was a catastrophe. I'm sure you guys saw it as well. And so we sent out a survey to all our companies. We have over 200 companies that we work with. So we sent out a survey to all of them being like, what's going on and what's up? Tell us. So the first question that we asked them is like, how many months did they felt like COVID was going to directly impact their recruitment? Because a lot of them freeze their recruitment, a lot of them stopped hiring at all. And so it was not a good answer that we got, because you can see here that 81% of the companies said 6 months or more in terms of recruitment being impacted. To give you a timing, this was sent out in May. So we're kind of in that zone, hopefully, but I'm thinking now that it's not resolving, that it might be a while before things go back to normal. And then we asked them, what is their main source of recruitment? Like, where do they recruit mainly from? And obviously, shocker, creative industry. You can see here that 60%, almost 60% of them are recruiting through inner networks and referrals. So what do I mean by that? When I'm saying inner networks and referrals, I'm literally talking about, my nephew is wanting an internship and I'm going to hire him, or the roommate of my colleague is looking for a job and her resume is getting on the top. Or for example, us, right, which we know the recruiters and we're like, hey, look at this resume. And of course, we're going to go on the top. And then in second, because the game is not completely rigged, you can see that 30% are recruiting through online job posting. But what are we seeing here is that, COVID has greatly impacted the recruitment. The creative fields are all about who you know. They were always all about who you know. And I guess that with COVID now it's even worse, and it's competitive. So my recommendation to you guys is, you can send out those online applications. I think that that's not going to hurt you, but you can see that it's only 30% of people that actually recruit mainly from that. And that 60% of them are recruiting from connections. So maybe what you should be focusing on right now, instead of just sending out hundreds of applications, is figuring out, okay, who do I know in this industry and how can I navigate this industry through my connections and get opportunities. So it's important for you guys to think about building strategic connections and also creating mentor-mentee relationships. Mentor-mentee relationships is when you're like, still a student and you're talking to somebody who's like my age or older, like somebody 10, 15, 20, 30 years in the field already. And that obviously is not competing with you at all. And that will be happy to help, because there is a solidarity still, specifically now that we're all in this crisis, everybody's helping out each other. So I'm going to talk about where I think you guys can find your network. So obviously, CalArts, number one, your school has much, much, much more to offer than a degree. And I feel like a lot of students are not taking advantage enough of that. And I say that it's easy for me to say it. When I was a student, I did not take advantage of it at all, but also nobody told me to. I mean, you have places like, you have people like Bailey, like Natasha, that are literally working every day to kind of help you out and like create relationship with employers, create relationship with programs like us, like offering online sessions, offering sessions to like help you with the resume and stuff. That's number one. You guys should definitely be on that and talking with them as much as possible to help find the jobs. But also what CalArts can offer is the network that they have. And really that's something that's invaluable. I mean, it has no price to it. And I think that that's something that you should be absolutely targeting. There's two types of people that I think you should definitely look into. One, the professors. The reason why is that professors are natural mentors. Okay. If you're teaching, you're definitely looking forward to like fostering the new generation of professionals, right? It's kind of what you want to be doing. And also, if you think about it, if you're a professor at a university level, you need to be, I mean, that means that you already are pretty much of an expert, or you have a lot of industry experience, because it's not everyone who can teach at a university level. So what I would say as an action, item, because I like to be pragmatic and just kind of give tangible advice, is I would say maybe after this call, obviously it's late for you guys, but maybe in the next few days, it would be good for you to do some detective work of like, okay, who's who, like I'm sure CalArts has a lot of the bios of the professors. If not, go check on LinkedIn, but check out who your tutors are, who your professors are, because some of them might be big deals and you didn't even realize it. Some of them might be working for like music companies or film companies or dance companies or like the biggest artist studios. You don't know who those guys are really, I mean, except from your time in the classroom with them. So I would say definitely research them a bit and then try to see if you can get a meeting with them and chatting a bit more with them to kind of start developing a little bit more of a relationship. I did that with one professor in my master's. She was actually the head of the master's. I had like, I don't know why, but we got along, we formed a relationship. And then when I moved to New York, she introduced me to 2 contacts that she had in New York. So that was like massive help for me. I didn't know anyone in New York, and I arrived and I got 2 contacts through my professor. So that can definitely lead you somewhere. Same thing for alumni. And I see that some of you guys are also alumni here. Alumni is like the biggest, like that's the gold mine for you, basically. And the way to find that is obviously, actually, Natasha, Bailey, does CalArts has some form of like an alumni department, or is that falling under the Career Center?
Yeah, so we do work with alumni, but we actually have an alumni and family engagement team that puts on things like CalArts Weekend that's coming up. So actually, we'll be having more information coming out about this in our upcoming Career Corner newsletter. But there's an opportunity to directly network with alumni next week within the CalArts Weekend platform.
So, that's amazing. So again, the work is kind of done for you guys as well. Like, the school is really doing everything they can to connect you guys. Definitely take advantage of that. Also, that's a question that you can ask to professors. Is there any former students that you feel like I should be connecting with? And that would be great people for me to talk to. Another way to go about it is to look on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really well done because you have searches where you can literally filter people that went to CalArts and people that are in the entertainment industry, for example, or people that are in the fine arts industry, or the arts not-for-profit world. And then you can kind of see who's there. And I would say for both professor and alumni, the best way, in my opinion, to connect is to send out an email that's simple. And that's kind of saying something along the lines of, hey, I'm a student at CalArts, so I'm an alum at CalArts. I was just reading a lot about you online, and I was wondering if you had 20 minutes for a Zoom call, as I'd love to hear more about how you got to where you are and get some input about the next steps in my career. So the reason why I'm saying this email this way, you'll notice that I'm actually putting the meeting about the other. In networking, that's like key. Never ask a meeting for networking never put it about you. Never say like, hey, Bailey, can we meet and talk about me? Bailey's not gonna have time to do that. I mean, maybe she'll have time because she's nice, but usually the best thing to do is to say, hey, Bailey, can we get a meeting so that we can talk about you? And of course, you don't say it like that. You say, I want to hear more about your trajectory and how you got to where you are. But don't forget that naturally people love talking about themselves. It's unconscious. So they will be actually more inclined to meet with you if they know the meeting is going to revolve around them. And that's not to put anything on professors or alumni. This is valid for any connection that you'll do. So if somebody's telling me, Laura, like, can I get a 20-minute call so I can hear more about how you got to being a theater producer and then like launching the Art Bond Initiative, I'm going to feel flattered in some ways. And I'm going to be like, okay, I can do it. And the reason why I also added 20 minutes in there, and I think it's important to when you reach out to people, to add a time frame, is that sometimes people don't want to meet because they're like, I don't want to spend an hour, with that student. I don't know them. 20 minutes, I think, is a doable time frame for anyone and feels a bit accessible. So I would, if I were you, I would start looking at building up a list. You don't have to reach out to everybody. You can reach out to 3 or 4 professors and like 5 or 6 or more, if you have time, alumni, and start from there. But that means that if you don't have anybody that I think that's a good place to start. CalArts is a great place to start. So don't lose the momentum. For those of you guys who are alumni already for a few years, I think that you should just reactivate the momentum and just kind of like, I think CalArts is always happy to have alumni reach out to them and being more active. So definitely use that. That's my recommendation. The second area is your own circle, okay? Don't forget to activate your own network. I don't want to make any assumptions here. Maybe some of you guys are first generation college students. Maybe some of you guys have, families that have absolutely no network in the fields that you're targeting. But what I would say is it's never a bad thing to ask and to kind of just say like to people, if you want to make your career in fine arts, and it would be good to just start talking to people and saying like, hey, listen, I really want to kickstart my career in fine arts. Do you know anybody who's working as an artist or in galleries or an arts organization? At this point, I'm trying to pick the brain of a few people and get a better insider perspective of the industry. You'll be surprised because people actually that are in your circle, whether it's like peers at school or friends and family, usually they're willing to help. They're your crew, right? So they're going to try to support you. I would definitely suggest doing that. And I would not disregard any connection that you can get. I'll give my example real quick. When I moved to New York, my uncle reached out to me, because at that time I reached out to everybody. I was like, who knows somebody in New York? Please connect me. And then I reached out to everybody, from the family, from the friends and stuff. And then 2 days before leaving New York, my uncle got back to me and he was like, hey, I know a lawyer in New York that you should meet. And I was like, oh, a lawyer, like, I don't study law. I don't want to be in law. I was like, I don't want to meet that guy. Anyway, I met that guy, and turns out that guy is the one who introduced me to the theater producer. So that's to tell you, like, never disregard any connection, because you never know where it leads. So definitely activate your own circle. Another thing is, if you ever had previous employers, if you ever did internships before, if you worked before, if you're working right now, I would say look back and make sure that you're in touch with those people, because you need to be establishing a long-lasting relationship with employers and previous employers. Don't forget that those industries are very small. They're very interconnected. So if you've done an internship 2 years ago or a year ago and you haven't been in touch with them, maybe after this workshop you pop a little email to them and you say like, hey, just wanted to see how is everything going. I know COVID has been crazy. Hope your family is doing well. Start reconnecting. It's never too late to reconnect, but start building and keep building those relationships, because those are people that, first of all, might have jobs for you. If they don't have jobs for you and they like you and you become kind of their protege, they will introduce you to other people, because they're going to want to help. I would say also in the work world, don't forget to like network, obviously vertically with the bosses, right? The boss of the boss of the boss, that's always great. But also never disregard horizontal as well, like the other juniors, the other interns, because those are people that actually, first of all, you don't know who they are. Second of all, maybe some of them is the nephew of the boss. I'm joking, but I'm not really joking. And then also maybe some of them will be, you know, big shots in 5 years, right? And then it's too late in 5 years to be like, hey, remember me when we're interning? No, you need to start building up the relationships now. So your own circle can also honestly bring you a lot, and you might disregard it because you might feel like, oh, I don't want to ask and stuff. But I think it's totally fine to ask, specifically if you're saying, I just want to talk to people. I just want to brainstorm with people, pick their brain. That's not very engaging. You're not saying I want a job from someone. If you say that, maybe people will be a bit reluctant to introduce you. But try it. I bet that if you try it, you'll find at least one or two connections from it, which is already good. The last one, and then afterwards I'll break it up for a few questions. So start thinking if you have any questions on what we just chatted about. The next area is obviously industry events and industry networks. So the creative industries are all about showing face, which is really funny because now we're not doing that anymore. We're all online and stuff. But there is a calendar of events in any industry you are in, and it's very important for you guys to be aware of it. If you're in film, there's all the film festivals. If you're in fashion, there are all the fashion weeks. If you're in the art world, there are all the art fairs, etc., etc., etc. So be aware of what the calendar is for your industry and start investing in attending to those events. And actually what's pretty cool right now is that a lot of them are happening in some capacity online. So even if you were in California and then you want to go to this art fair, the Freeze Art Fair in New York, like maybe there's a way for you now to kind of being able to be engaged in some ways. And the reason why I'm saying to go to those events and like to invest in doing that, it's not specifically to like go to those events and arrive by yourself and try to randomly talk to people. I feel like there's kind of this idea of networking that everybody has this myth in their mind where basically like you're at an event, like a cocktail event, you're like wearing like a suit and then like you have your name tag and you have your drink at the bar and you're by yourself trying to think like, how am I going to talk to people? I think demystify that idea. I'm not telling you to go to events and stuff to randomly chat with people because that's just not what the reality is. But maybe bring friends with you, go with people. And then at the same time, if you start attending those events regularly, those are always the same people that go to those events. So you're going to start having familiar faces. I can assure you that if you want to work for a gallery, if the goal is like to work in a gallery and you find 5 galleries and you attend all their events, I can assure you that after 5 times you're in the room, somebody's going to wonder who you are because they're going to be like, why is that person always there? They must be in the industry. So I think it's a great way to kind of get to know people, but also it's a great way to gain a better industry knowledge. And that's going to give you a lot of confidence and a lot of leverage to talk to professionals, because then you have something to talk about. Wow, did you see this last, performance art exhibition. It was crazy. This artist compared to what they did last year. You have something to kind of say and back you up. So definitely like attend as much as you can once COVID is getting a little bit more stabilized. Hopefully things will be reopening, but who knows? Things will be shifting. There will be other ways to make that happen. And then also something that's important is collectives, associations, and memberships. There's a lot of collectives out there in the US specifically, and associations that are industry focused. If you check, for example, on the Americans for the Arts website, a lot of them have, there's a lot of resources about networks. For example, if you're in design, I really love this network called the One Club for Creativity. They're awesome. Do some research. I might not be the most knowledgeable about that if you're in dance or if you're in film and stuff, but do your research about, is there any collectives or networks that exist? Some of them you have to pay, but honestly, in my opinion, it's a really good investment because first of all, a lot of them have student discounts. You can also ask them if there's a COVID discount. That's something that happens. You can tell them, you know, you can be real and tell them like, hey, listen, I really want to join your network, but things are tight for me right now. What can you do? But once you join those types of networks, first of all, you're getting an access right away to like 100 other people that are in your field. And then you can demand some stuff. You can be like, hey, can I facilitate connections with mentors and stuff like that? So I would definitely recommend for you guys to like start looking into your industry networks. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of cool collectives out there if you're in the arts, for example. And I think that it's worth a Google search. And also maybe CalArts, maybe, you know, Bailey, Natasha, I don't know if you guys have any resources on that, but maybe faculties have some resources on that. So start looking around on this. So
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Laura. I was going to say, we do have a list actually that we can share that I co-created with Sox, who I don't know if they're still on this call right now or if they had to go early, but we co-created a list of all the different associations in the different art forms and métiers. So we would be so happy to share that with you all if you reach out to us.
That's amazing. So, I mean, again, the work is there. So
actually, I'm going to upload it in the chat right here while you're talking. So I'll let you get back to it, Laura.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. That way people can access it right away. So that's kind of my take on where you can start finding a few connections. I'm gonna on the next part of the workshop, which has only 2 slides left, I'm gonna talk about how you cultivate, right? I talked about where do you find connections. Now let's talk about how you build up a relationship with someone. But before that, is there any of you guys who have a question on what I just mentioned so far? I'm just gonna stop sharing for a quick second in case so I can see. Any of you have questions on what I just mentioned so far in terms of like where to find connections? You can type it in the chat, you can unmute, or if everything's clear, I'm happy to keep going. Let me know.
I did have a question.
Hi, Juan. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm curious about how to cultivate and maintain connections that one is making right now. The prime example is, you know, like I'm organizing the lectures, the visiting artist lectures, and I'm getting in contact with a lot of artists and a lot of teachers. But sometimes I'm very, you know, I feel very clumsy about how to make the next step or cultivate that connection, because we always talk about like, this is a great opportunity to meet artists, but yeah, meet them, then what?
Right. Totally get that. Well, if you stay tuned for another 5 minutes, I'm going to talk exactly about that, and how to actually cultivate relationships, because you're right. Like a lot of people meet great professionals and they're like, okay, now I've got the contact, I met with them, how do I move on from there? And that's like a difficult kind of task, and that takes on some work. So if you bear with me, I'm going to get to it right now in my next 2 slides, and I'll answer your question, hopefully, and then feel free to follow up with another question to go even more precise if you need to. So bear with me, Juan. Sorry, I'll answer you in a second.
Yeah, I understand.
Any of you have another questions? Other questions on what I just mentioned? I'm looking through, I'm not sure. I never know how Zoom works if somebody's raising their hands. All right, guys. So I think if things are clear so far, let me just keep going with those 2 last slides. And then afterwards, I'll break it up completely and you guys can ask away. But do ask away because, you know, obviously I'm around. So you should also take advantage of that. So Juan, this is going to answer your question. Basically, we talked about how do you get a meeting with a professor, with an alumni, with an artist. But then what happens after that? You know, that's kind of the hardest part. I have a lot of people that tell me I'm really good in networking. I meet a lot of people. And I'm like, oh, that's great. So, you know, how are you utilizing this network? They're like, oh, I don't know. I'm not really, I just met them once. So I think what's important is there's a few techniques to build up upon relationships. Okay, so let's say I met with Bailey. Okay, I asked Bailey, hey Bailey, you know, I would love to hear more about how you got to where you are and get your input as well on next steps for me to make a career in performance art, let's say. So Bailey talks to me, meet with me, take the time and tell me, you know, I think you should look into organization A and organization B. Those are 2 organizations that are actually really good for performance art. And I think you would benefit greatly to potentially work for any of them. So what happens after that? What happens is the first thing is I need to go back to Bailey and tell her, Bailey, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated your input and I will make sure to get in touch with organization A and B and try to see if there's any opportunities. Do you by any chance know if there are any alum from CalArts or anybody that you might know that could be a good contact for me to start there? So when you thank somebody, first of all, if you don't thank somebody, you burn the relationship. That I'll tell you straight up. If you met with somebody and you took their time and you don't meet and you don't take the time to thank them, you will lose them. If I go back to Bailey 6 months later, if she met with me, I don't thank her, and I go back to her 6 months later being like, hey Bailey, how is everything? Like, I was wondering if I could pick your brain on something. She's not gonna do it. I mean, she might do it because I know Bailey's really cool, but she might do it a second time, but believe me, she's not going to view that as like, you know, a good way to go. So thanking people is like the number one. And actually a lot of people lose jobs because they do job interviews and they don't say a thank you note afterwards. And I can tell you, because I talk to recruiters all the time, the recruiters, no matter how good you are, if there's not a thank you email for them after you chatted with them, you don't have the position. That's just what it is. And that actually is something that we saw in the program. In the beginning, I was like, some people were not getting the jobs. And I was like, why is that the case? They were so qualified and perfect for it. And I realized that they were not sending thank you notes. So now in the program, we impose it. We have like a template of the thank you note. So thanking people is also a really good way to follow up on the ask. You see what I did here with Bailey? I'm like, by the way, if there's anybody that you might know in organization A and organization B, that would be really appreciated. So let's say Bailey connects me with Natasha, who works at organization A. Okay, so I connect with Natasha. Hey, Natasha, Bailey, you know, suggested I reach out to you. I was wondering if you had, by any chance, time for a quick coffee. I'd love to invite you and chat a bit more about the opportunities at organization A. Natasha's super nice. She meets with me. We chat a bit more. She tells me that, you know, applications for the next incoming intake of internships is going to be that date, and that, you know, I can certainly, you know, follow back up with her at that time and send her my profile directly to see what she can do. Okay, so after that, not only do I need to thank Natasha and being like, hey Natasha, thank you so much for your input. It was great to hear more about organization A's activities, and I'm so excited. I will definitely make sure to prepare my application and send that to you for your review. And of course, if you have any advice on how to optimize that, I would really appreciate it. But then after that, I need to go back to Bailey and tell her like, hey Bailey, I just want to let you know that I connected with Natasha. We had a great time chatting. She actually told me about this and that, and I will be applying for organization A, and I will keep you posted on how things develop. You see what I did here? I kept Bailey in the loop about my meeting with Natasha, because if I didn't do that and I go back to Bailey 6 months later and I ask Bailey, hey, can you connect me with someone else? She's never gonna do it. She connected me already with somebody that she knew, a connection, a professional contact, and I didn't even take the time to keep her posted and keep her in the loop. So that's problematic, you see? So it's very important, as like you're meeting people, to thank them. And if they introduce you to somebody, you need to thank them as well for, you know, that specific meeting, and you need to keep them in the loop on what's going on. So that's number one. Thanking people is crucial. Number two is keep in touch with people. And I think, Juan, that kind of talks a bit about what you were asking. Keep in touch with people, because if you only talk to people when you're asking them for favors, you're going to lose those connections. You're going to burn them. In my work, once or twice, but you're going to burn them. What's very important is to build up a genuine relationship with people as much as you can, and to be in touch with them when you don't need a favor. So let's say, for example, to keep on my example with Bailey and Natasha, I end up finding an opportunity at organization C. Okay. I go back to Bailey. Hey, Bailey, great news. I just got an opportunity at organization C. I wanted to thank you again so much, because you've been such a great supporter of mine. And I feel like our conversations have really refined the way I submitted my applications to companies. I'm very excited about this opportunity, and I would love to catch up over a coffee in a few months to tell you a little bit about how things go, and just keep you posted, as you've been, you know, such a great supporter. And then I go back to Natasha, same thing. Natasha, hope all is well. I just wanted to let you know that I've got an opportunity with organization C. Really appreciate, again, all your help to, you know, provide with more input about organization A, and I would love for us to collaborate together. I will make sure, you know, to reapply on a next term, and I would love to keep you posted on how things go on my end. So this is kind of an example to give you that once you have things that happen in your life, whether it's a performance, whether it's an internship opportunity, whether it's a job, whether it's a project that you're involved with, it's a good excuse for you to chat with people, to kind of pop back in people's life, because you can keep them posted, and always thanking them, you know, always telling them, like, I just wanted to let you know about this because you've been such a great supporter, or because your input has been so important to me and I want to keep you in the loop. The reason why is because if you start doing this, you're going to start making people invested in you. You know, they're going to start being like, okay, now I'm like somehow invested. Like Bailey's going to say like, okay, Laura, I got to kind of follow because she's keeping me posted. You can also be in touch with people for the major holidays. If you're talking, for example, you know, Juan, you said something about the artists and the visiting artists. If you're meeting an artist, maybe you start following about what their next projects are, and you can pop back in for you know, and being like, hey, you know, it was great seeing you again. I just want to make sure, I just wanted to tell you congratulations for the latest project. I actually saw the exhibition, it was fantastic. Hope all is doing well, you know, hope all is well, and happy to catch up soon. You can use kind of like either big opportunities in your life, obviously keep it professional, or big opportunities in their life, in their professional life, to kind of have touch points. And sometimes for closer people, it can just be like, hey, what's up? You know, how is everything? We haven't been in touch for a couple of months, and I just wanted to make sure that everything's all right. Or if Bailey and I talked about an article about performance art, and then suddenly there's an amazing article from Art Forum that's talking about this great performance artist, then maybe I can send an email to Bailey and be like, hey, just wanted to share this with you because it made me think of our conversation. Hope all is well. Little things like that, so long as you don't harass, are very good. Don't harass, obviously. What I would say is 3 to 6 months is a good kind of like timeline, and you can use your judgment. There will be people that will be close mentors that you might want to be in touch with every 2 weeks, every month. For the rest, make sure that you kind of just do that a little bit more, you know, segment it a little bit more. The other thing that I want to remind you as well is to offer your help to mentors. You know, at one point I want to go and say to Bailey, like, Bailey, by the way, if there's anything that I can do on my help, on my end to help, please let me know. I'm happy, you know, you've been so helpful, and I'm happy to return the favor at any point. If you kind of, that switches a little bit the dynamic of the relationship. You really want to showcase that there's a mutuality between, you know, it's not just one person who's helping you out and you're there. And also one thing that I want you guys to remember, and I think one thing that will maybe help you demystify networking, is that honestly, if you're in the creative industry, as a junior, you're somebody of interest, because the seniors out there, they need the youth to stay relevant. You know, it's literally the creative fields. It's like, if you're not in touch with the next generation and the next trends, you are not relevant. That's the reason why I love running my program, is because I'm in touch with all the new generation of professionals, and that's the only way I'm staying relevant in this business. So never forget, I'm not telling you that so that you can be cocky and be like, oh, I'm so important. I'm just telling you that to remind you that you are also strategic for other people and for mentors. It's not just a one way. They know that they'll be collecting favors from you pretty soon as you're moving up from the industry in the industry. So just never forget that. The final slide that I have on how to cultivate, and then I can answer any questions that you guys might have about this, is just to remind you that networking with the right people is going to accelerate your career growth by like 5x. That's why sometimes you see artists or creatives or people in the field that are like, why are they up to the top? I don't understand the talent that they have. It's probably that they had really good connections. The other way around, you see some people that are extremely talented that are not going anywhere. It's probably because they were lacking of connections. So it's super important for you guys to like be more on top of it. As of now, no need to think about, oh my God, I didn't do it before. Now that you're hearing about it, I think start slowly to implement it and start keeping track. Because right now you might have 5 connections, but believe me, it's exponential. It's like, it's going to grow so fast. You're going to be very surprised. So for me, I have like, obviously I'm in recruitment and I'm placing people. So I have like a software for it, with like my 500 connections with alarms telling me you need to contact that person, with like things that are automatized. I have to. You don't have to do what I'm doing, but you should somehow do it a little bit. And I would suggest to create maybe a Google Doc where every 3 months you can have an alarm on your phone saying update it, and go and start tracking. I know Bailey, Natasha, who they are, what their job is, when is the last time you got in touch with them, maybe when is the next time you kind of want to talk to them a bit. You can add the new connections and you can update it as you go. And believe me, that will be a very useful document for you, because as you're doing projects, specifically if you're an artist, for example, you're doing performance art, how can you make sure that you can involve people, get funding or get advice from other professionals about how to communicate about it? Then you can go back to your database and see, okay, who do I talk to? So my final words are going to be that, mentors are going to impact your life tremendously. Number one, because they're going to give you amazing professional input that might save you years. And I'll give you my example. When I started in theater, and that guy was like, do you want to be a theater producer? I was like, yes, I want to be a theater producer. But again, because I thought I was going to be liaising with the directors and the actors and doing casting and like working on the sets and stuff. But it was not that at all. It was really literally raising funds for the shows. If I had had people in my life that were in this field, they would have told me, and I would have been a bit more aware of the reality of the business, because sometimes you have an idea of what your career is, but the reality of the business is that it's different, and there's actually 2 different paths or 3 different paths. So if you start talking to professionals in your field, you're going to get further clarity, and that's going to save you years. If I had had clarity on my job, I wouldn't have done this job. I would have been like, I don't want it. I want to do something else. I want to be an executive producer or line producer, as opposed to a producer that which was more financing. The second thing is, people will open doors for you. Really, I mean, mentors will be so generous. As soon as somebody considers that you're their protege, they're usually so generous with you. They'll give you everything. And I'll tell you, my first mentor in New York, that theater producer, is actually the guy who found me all my jobs for 7 years. 7 years, all my jobs were found through that guy, in a way or another, because he introduced me, because then I got introduced by somebody else. So one person impacted my life, and it's not just my story. Like, it's the story of a lot of other people. So if you multiply that, and if you find 2, 3 really strong mentors, and then you start cultivating other professional relationships, you're going to be set. And that's how you're going to get the jobs. In my opinion, getting those 60% of people that are getting recruited by that's the best way to do it, specifically in this job market. So I'll stop talking now, because I don't want to overdo it. And, do you guys have any questions about everything that I just mentioned? Any questions that's relating to you? Sometimes we think it's personal, but actually it helps everybody. And we've got 15 minutes left together, so I'm happy to address them. Any questions, guys? Feel free to unmute or type it in the chat box. And Juan, I hope I answered your question in some ways. And if not, tell me.
You did. Yes.
any questions on how to start relationships, any concerns about networking, stuff that are blocking you, you know, anything I can help to do it, to demystify it. That's kind of my goal, is to demystify a little bit the process for you guys. Natasha, Bailey, what do you think in terms of like, what are the main roadblocks in your opinion for people to like actually start networking and creating connections?
Yeah, I think very generally just kind of shyness and maybe concerns around, I don't have this perfect thing to say, so I don't know if I can say anything. So I think that might be a big concern.
And I would say for that, one thing that's really good is a lot of people are, I'm definitely an extrovert, I'm sure you guys can see, but I know there's a lot of introverts out there that are like, they're dreading the idea of doing that. So what I would say is like, don't forget that if you're a good networker, you actually don't talk that much. You know, like right now I've talked a lot, but if I was in a networking meeting and I was trying to really build a relationship, I wouldn't talk that much. I would ask questions. You know, how did you get there? What was the path for you to kind of get there? What would you recommend in terms of the next skills that like people are looking for right now in juniors? I would just be asking questions and let the other speak. So I think that's a good way to demystify it, is if you're connecting with people, don't be scared about talking, because actually the goal is you don't talk. That's kind of the goal, is like you just get the information, and people unconsciously, because you didn't talk that much and you made them talk, they're going to like you. They're going to take a liking in you, because that's just how it goes. Oh, I'm seeing a question here from Lilia, who says, any recs for online job searching other than getting past the automated resume filters? Well, I would say online job searching, a good place to go. Obviously, LinkedIn, I think, is still like a really great tool for it. I would also say there's a lot of job boards that are industry specific and related that you can look into. But definitely, like, you know, if you have a few companies that you really want to target, you should follow them on LinkedIn, because they're going to tell you what's going to happen. And also, it's not just about that. It's about the fact that, and that's just a general advice, if you're interested in working for 10, there's like 10 top companies that you want to work for, you need to stalk them on all profiles, like LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. The reason why I'm telling you to stalk them is because when you apply to them afterwards, you can actually be much more personalized, you know, because you can tell them like, I really want to work for you guys because the type of content that you're putting out there, you know, is really fascinating to me. That latest article that you put about the shift in the industry really, you know, changed my mind about that. And this, like, make it personal, because recruiters, let me be familiar a bit, recruiters see through the bullshit. They see it, you know, and they will see if you didn't do your homework, and they will see that you send out a templated email that you send out to 5 other people. They will see it because it's their job. So if you're applying online, you need to take the time to have, like, honestly, what I say to my participants, and we're not able to do it, but if it was me looking for jobs, I would have 1 resume per job. I would have a template, and then I would go for every job description. I would take the keywords, put in my resume, and then I would work. I would do 5 applications instead of 50, but I would do them well. And that's gonna, like, I can tell you that recruiters are very, very sensitive to that. And they see it when you're doing your job, and they appreciate it. So I would say my reco for job searching online is to identify the companies that you love, stalk them, and know when you can, like, know when there are openings. And sometimes you don't need to have an opening, just submit an application. I mean, I think that Natasha and Bailey, I'm sure you know that as well, but I think most of the job opportunities are not advertised online. Most of them are actually internal and open. So even if there's not an opening, I think it's worth sending. And also because recruiters might keep you for the future. You know, they might say, well, listen, there's no opening right now, but you look like somebody who would be a good cultural fit for us, and then let me be in touch when I have a next job opening. So that's my advice, Lilia. I hope that's that answers your question.
Looks like we have another one in the chat. Do you have any particular tips for job searching for non-US or international students?
Yes, I do. As a non-US and international student as well myself back in the days. Listen, I think that, you know, of course, I'm not gonna lie, the road for a non-US citizen in the US is difficult. It's even more difficult now than when it was back in my days. What I would say is know your path to immigration, meaning be quite clear about what's available to you. You're most likely going to be on an OPT, what we call an OPT, after you finish your studies, or a CPT if you're still doing your studies, and kind of understand what your timeline is. Because if you're an international student, you can say like, hey, you know, you can apply and you can make somewhere and just being like, you know, I am available to work, and you need to say it. I'm available to work for the next 12 months full time, and you need to kind of understand what's the next step, right? Is it the H-1B, the work visa? Is it the O-1, which is the artist visa? I mean, I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I might as well be, because I've been through it myself. But I would say, Ling, to answer your question, is also talk to people. Like, you know, you have great resources like people like Bailey and Natasha. Talk to people who have the cultural codes, because I am sure, and I don't know where you're from, but I am sure that in your country, the cultural codes and the business codes and the networking ways are very different than from the US. So your resume, and that's something that I deal with a lot with the program, because we have a lot of international students who apply for New York. And always their resume is too shy. The US is like, and I'm French, so I know it's the same thing for us. In France, you'd never want to say that I'm great, you know, like you're like, oh no, I cannot say that. But in the US, actually, you need to say those things. You need to be confident. Like, it's appreciated. It's not viewed as like, oh, you're cocky or whatever. It's actually like, if you're not able to sell yourself, then you're not going to get the job. So there are some cultural differences that actually will make or break. And I believe that that's probably why I was not able to find a job when I first moved to New York, is because I was applying in the French way to American companies, instead of understanding that it's, even if it seems the same thing, because you're like, oh, it's Western, it's kind of the same, it's actually not the same. So ask people around you on like, what are the ways to do it, you know, and how can you make sure that you get into the cultural norm, so that way that's going to help your case a little bit. That's my advice. And I hope that answers it. So there's a question from Juan that says, as a former international student myself, I would add that it's not that you have the perfect job from the I would add that it's not that you have to have the perfect job from the OPT for the OPT. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Juan is right. Like, you know, you need to kind of launch yourself, right, somewhere. And I think right now in this economy, even more, take the job. Take the job, because the job, even if it's not exactly where it might be, skills are transferable. You can build up on it. You can have the stability while building up other networks. So, you know, don't turn out opportunities at this moment, except if they're really terrible. But, you know, I highly doubt it in the places that you guys are. And I think in the industries that you guys are, take the opportunities, build up on it, and then use it as a leverage to get other opportunities. Any final questions, guys? We've got 5 minutes together.
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Did someone unmute themselves? Oh no. My question was, in your experience, if there's been any ways that students or just other people have like tried to cold reach out to you and start networking and building connections with you, and like what do you like to see? What has worked well, or what hasn't landed well? Yeah, if you have examples.
I think that's a great question. Well, yes, a lot, several, but you know, for me, it's a little bit different, because in some ways I'm also, you know, I'm running this program, right? So when students reach out to me, of course, I redirect them to like talk to me or talk to advisors, so that we can advise. But I would say before that, I would say if somebody reaches out to me and really kind of tells me that they did their homework again and says like, hey, Laura, you know, I want to tell you that I'm a massive fan of the Band's Visit, the musical, and I just want to chat with you a little bit more about how you got to like to work in the theater industry. I know it's really difficult, and I'm just wondering if, you know, is there a chance for us to get on a quick call? I know you must be very busy, but I promise I wouldn't take more than 15-20 minutes of your time. Like, maybe that's something that I would consider. You know, I think like if you really kind of connect with someone, and again, if you don't make it templated, and you flatter them, you always have to flatter people, you know, it's just the truth it's just the truth. You have to flatter people. You need to tell them like, wow, what you're doing is so awesome. And I just, you know, I really want to get to that level. Like, can I pick your brain on that? And I think people, if they have the time, they will do it because they're flattered. One thing that I will say though, Natasha, and I'm glad that you're asking this question, is one thing that a lot of people kind of, I don't know why they don't think about it, but they tell me, a lot of my participants are like, well, Laura, I contacted like 5 people and they never answered me. And I'm like, oh, okay, but how many times did you contact them? They're like, well, I just sent 1 email. And I'm like, nobody will answer you on the first email. I'm telling you straight up, no one will ever answer you on the first email. That is my life. I'm reaching out to a lot of employers to build up more partnerships. No one ever answered me on the first email. You have to follow up. You have to follow up. And my recommendation on how to follow up is you send email 1 week later, you send email 2 weeks later, you send email 3. And if after 3 emails, somebody didn't answer you, then you can consider them unresponsive. But before that, really, it's just that you didn't do your job. Because the reason why, and I'm saying that, is if I'm getting an email from Juan, for example, like, you know, I'm busy. I'm going to see the email from Juan. And I'm going to be like, oh, I'll answer him later when like I'm less busy. And then it's going to slip my mind. And that's just normal. Like that's how people function. You know, if Juan answers, follow back up with me a second time, then we'll be like, okay, now I gotta, you know, I forgot the first time. Now I gotta answer. And then that's it. I think, you know, the worst case scenario, first of all, is that people don't answer, and, you know, big deal. That's literally the worst case scenario that you might have. You only lost a little bit of your time, but definitely be thorough on following up. And that's for everything: LinkedIn messages, emails, recruiters. Never say like, I sent out an email, I did my job. You didn't, because people will not answer. That's kind of what I wish somebody would have told me in the beginning. I was like, why nobody's answering me? You know, I'm like sending out all those emails, nobody's ever answering me. And then I realized, I was like, oh, they're going to answer me on that second email that I send them. And they do. Most of them answer on email 2 or email 3. So Natasha, I kind of went on a tangent, but I just realized that might have been a good advice.
Yeah, I think that was super good. Thank you.
That was great. It looks like we have one more question in the chat from Ling. Any advice for older students, mid-30s, looking for a career change?
Well, I think that, you know, a lot of mature, we call them mature students. A lot of mature students are like, oh my God, I'm going to have to start from the get-go, and because I'm doing career change. But actually, no, you're actually in a good position because you've had a previous career. So my recommendation to you is leverage your previous skills and justify the narrative, create a narrative to say, you know, I've got experience in sales and marketing, and now I'm going to go towards cultural management, and I'm going to apply my skills that I've learned in the business world to the art world. And that's going to be like what I'm bringing to the table, right? So utilize your previous path and leverage it. Build up that kind of, you know, I am a good applicant because I have had this career, and this is what I can bring to the table, as opposed to any other junior who's just starting. So actually, I think you have somehow of an advantage, you know, because you can target, you're probably going to outshine a lot of the other juniors who might not have like 10 years in you know, another field. And even if it's, you know, even if it's engineering and it's got nothing to kind of like link with what your field is, if you work as an engineer, you work in teams, you delivered projects for deadlines, you know, there's a lot of things that you can capitalize on. So again, think about the best strengths and skills, and then explain why you're shifting and why you're going to be an interesting candidate for them.
That was awesome. Thank you. That's so helpful. And I think that's something that a lot of our alums come to us for sometimes, in thinking about, you know, what's the next phase and how do I use what I have before and really tell that story in a great way. Yeah. I know we're at 8. I want to be cognizant of your time, Laura. It was so wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for bringing this information to our community. Round of applause all around for you.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Well, Laura's contact information for Artbound Initiative is in the chat. I'll let everyone grab that in the next minute or so. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, everyone. Nice to see you all. We will have the recording of this, so if you do want to reach out to the Center for Life and Work to get a copy of that or to share that with your friends, please do.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Bailey and Natasha.
Yes. Thank you, Kanya. Thank you, Laura.
My pleasure. Hope it was helpful, guys. And, you know, don't be overwhelmed. Nothing needs to happen tomorrow. Just a few things to kind of like switch your mind a little bit and be proactive. And I'm sure that it will hopefully be helpful for you guys to get gigs and get opportunities. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank
you.
You
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bailey.
Yeah, hi.
I have like a super quick question for you.
Yeah.
I think you're still recording for the video.
Oh, sorry. Yes, let me I can go ahead and turn it off.